moderator. And so we've had questions submitted by via email from the WPNA membership. Obviously, everyone here is going to have an opportunity to write something down and ask the candidates questions. Each candidate will have a maximum of 2 minutes to answer the questions. And then after that, we'll have a closing statement. Each candidate will get another 3 minutes to close. At this point, I would like to ask if we have any other candidates that are not necessarily from this area. If they want to introduce themselves, take the opportunity to say hello. How are you, sir?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ron Clancy. I'm one of the new state court judges in the traffic division. I was appointed by the governor just 11 weeks ago with my colleagues. I formerly served in the state senate for 9 years, and prior to that time, I was a municipal court judge in the city of Stone Mountain. I raised my family in the Winnona area. My kids are grown and gone, and I just thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, sir, under the illustrious Wayne Purdy, Chief Judge of the State Court of DeKalb County, and also glad to be here with my friend Judge Leach. Thank you for here.
And I'm Wayne Purdy, the Chief Judge of the State Court, and I'm also up for re-election in May, along with Judge Ramsey. And at this point, I don't have any opposition, but I'll come by and say hello. And I live over at Hennepin Street.
Thank you. Also, we've got your audience members. I think at this point, I'd like to just go ahead and introduce Brad and let him give you a little information on the bond. That'll take about 10 minutes or so.
We have light in that area?
Over here.
Yeah, on the person?
I think later we'll change, I think, to the slideshow. It's easier with the lights down. Is that right?
Yeah, can everybody see it okay? And really the information's on the screen. That's the important stuff. It's not me. So that's what you want to be able to see. Everybody hear me okay without the mics here? All right, great. First, let me say thank you very much to the Winnona Park Neighborhood Association and all of you guys for coming out here and investing your time to kind of be in a very important process, part of the community process. But what I'm hoping to accomplish in the next 5 or 10 minutes here is just educate everybody a little bit on the GEO bond that we're going to be asked to vote on November 3rd, and tell you why there's a group of citizens here in town called the Decatur Citizens for Kids group that believe it's the right thing for our community. And we hope ultimately to encourage you to get out and vote November 3rd and vote yes on that GEO bond. I'll take a couple of minutes and just take you through so really what we're counting on in this projection is about 2,000 additional students. And if you start kind of getting under the covers on those numbers, at least 1,000 of those, probably more likely closer to 1,200, are already in school systems in early childhood and kindergarten. So we don't really have to believe that we're going to have much more growth to serve that community. And I don't know if you all noticed, but when I'm walking around, I see a hell of a lot of strollers, particularly down here in Winnona Park and over in Oakhurst. If that's a leading indicator, I'd be willing to bet that we've got at least 2,000 on our hands in 2020. So with that, we can move on to the next round. So kind of just wanted to take a second to tell you how the funds are earmarked for spending. Won't go into a lot of detail here, but point being, we're talking about $22 million for the high school, 15 for the middle, 25 for elementary schools, and 7 for early childhood. And so we want to continue our investment in kind of providing that foundational growth for kids to enter into CSD with a great foundation for educational excellence. And as I mentioned at the outset, interest rates, historic lows, likely only to go up. Now is the right time to approve the bond and start focusing in on building this capacity that we need. So, the thing that I care, I don't know about you guys, who here wants to pay more taxes? Nobody, right? None of us do. So let me just talk about how this is going to affect you, as opposed to kind of getting into the individual dollars here, which everybody's situation is going to be a little different in terms of your home values. Let me just talk about in aggregate what you're facing. So over the last several years, the city schools and the commission have been able to reduce millage rates on all of us as residents of the city, with additional reductions coming in 2016. The net impact of all of these taxes nets out to be about a wash. And so let me explain how that's happening. So between 2015 and 2016, the city commission is reducing our millage rates from 0.13 to 0.12. All right? The school system reducing from 0.205 to 0.1866. So you're talking about a net reduction of about 3 millage points between kind of what your tax burden would be. What we're asking you to sign up for in the GEO bond is an increase of 2.69 mils. And so net, basically a wash, right? So you won't see a tax increase, yet you won't see any incremental reductions from what you're paying today.
I've heard that the increase in taxes with the bond would be about 8%. So are you saying the decrease in millage is 8%?
Let's see, in total, the millage decrease, yeah, I guess it would be in the neighborhood of about 8. I'd have to do the quick math, but the millage reduction is about, is a total of about 3 between the two of those, and we're asking at 2.7, so it's a small net gain.
And I'm a big supporter of the bond, but taxes could go up in the years beyond now, right? And that would make this not a wash.
Yeah,
And the 8% would still be the same.
and taxes could also go down, so the millage could continue to go down, and I think you'll find that the city's done a pretty good job, as well as school system has, as evidenced by the last year, of reducing our tax burden on all of us as citizens.
Again, I'm a supporter of the bond, but somehow, I may be wrong, but it feels kind of misleading to say that that's a wash.
What are the taxes going to be? Not the roads or it's wonderful. The way you decide the taxes going to be to provide a place for the road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what appraisals go up. I can't tell you what the appraisals are going to be next year or the year after.
So if you have the same appraisal tax, and you say the same as it is after.
I'm saying it's a net wash, yes.
And so since appraisal is probably going to go up, we're probably not going to spend more money.
I just think that argument is not one that needs to be in there.
And so, but I agree too, I think it should be. So given that, let me kind of quickly make a couple more points, in the interest of everybody's time here. Number one, for those of you that are over 65, you're most likely aware of a referendum at the legislature to remove all of your operating advances, so your O&M portion of your school system taxes, which represents about 2/3 of the total burden, would be removed. So let's move on. Let's talk quickly about alternatives here, y'all. The primary alternative, effectively tripling the number of trailers that we have in use. Cost of that over the next 4 years, about $28 million. That $28 million comes out of the operating budget, which is capped at 25 mils. And so that limits our ability to spend on student programs, to attract the best teachers and staff, to drive diversity, to do things to help some of the less privileged socioeconomic folks in our community. Has major green space, field, and parking area impact, so we cover up all of Winnona Park's backfield with trailers. And then
All the way back to the wood playground?
it would be pretty darn close, yeah.
How many is that? How many trailers are you talking?
In total, 57 trailers across the system.
And how many schools?
4. Okay?
And since we have a field, I would imagine that a lot of them would end up here because some schools don't have the space. So
Yeah,
that's something to think about.
I can't, I don't know the specific plan, but I would imagine you're absolutely, I think that's a pretty good guess. And so the thing that me as a guy with a daughter in kindergarten at Claremont, you know what I don't want to happen? I don't want my daughter eating lunch at 10 in the morning and then being grumpy Gus by about 2 o'clock, and then me having to go pick her up at 5 o'clock and having to deal with that. Nor do I want her eating lunch at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is what would end up having to happen in the common areas with that stuff. And so let me just close by saying thank you very much for the opportunity to kind of get up here and talk a little bit about the GEO bond. I'd encourage you to go to goyesdecatur.org to gather additional information. We've got lots of good info on the bond there, and most importantly, get out and vote for whatever candidates you support on November 3rd, and please, I encourage you to vote yes on the bond. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Brad, we appreciate that. Just as an aside, Brad graciously came by and gave some additional information about the bond referendum. There is no formal citizen opposition to the bond referendum, so we couldn't contact anybody to have an opposing view. So be informed, get all the education you want. To me, numbers can be spun in a lot of different ways to make good decisions on the road. I think from now, we'd like to start with the forum portion of the night. Initially, I think I'd like to just take a moment. We've got 2 minutes for opening statements. If no one is opposed, I think as I introduce somebody to come up and take a seat at the table, maybe they'll take those 2 minutes then and go ahead and have the opening statement. 3? I meant 3 minutes. That's what I meant. Oh, yeah. You want to do that? Okay. I don't know. Why don't we just, you guys sit down. I'll introduce you. Chance to stand up. 3 minutes. He is going to be our timekeeper. He's going to give you a yellow card. I'll give you a warning. You can bring those up.
Or just raise your hand, we'll come and collect them from you. Throughout the evening, if you don't have any yet.
Well, again, thank you all for coming out. Thank you to the candidates for coming out. Again, we'd like to take 3 minutes to introduce yourselves and let everyone know a little bit more about yourselves. Thank you guys. District 2.
Evening, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is Brian Smith, and I'm running for District 2 Commission. District 2, basically, as you all know, pretty much is predominantly Oakhurst and Winnona Park and a little part of the housing authority in high school, just north of the tracks. I think we'd all agree Decatur's a pretty special place. The way our city commission, our city has worked over the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and our outstanding school system has put us in a very good spot. But with that spot comes a lot of challenges. Enrollment increases, tax increases, reduced green space, diversity going down. I know you all see it, and I see it. Whether it's looking at the caution and concern here in Winnona Park that I hear as co-president of the Winnona Park Neighborhood Association about infill housing, lack of green space. We're the only part of the community.
If you don't mind me interrupting for a second, this is being live streamed. They can't hear you on the web if you aren't talking into a microphone.
You can use the wireless if you want.
Yeah.
And I'll just go. So whether it's the lack of green space, which I know from being in Winnona Park and knowing that this is the only part of the community that doesn't have green space in and to itself, I see the value of diversity, whether it be through my participation like many of you in the great MLK Service Day, or with that Better Together Forum, which is the start of, I think, a lot of great things to come in the city. I've been walking around, whether it be Shadowmore, Avery, Heatherdown, or even the south parts of the new Winnona Park, if you will, Park, Camden, Chevelle, and I hear you. I hear that you guys want someone to lead that transition. It's an interesting part of our time here in the city. And you want someone that has experience. Not that they just check the box, but has actually had the experience to listen and hear and make educated decisions. On November 3rd, I hope you vote Brian Smith. I look forward to speaking with you and entertaining some of your questions tonight. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you. Next from District 2, I'd like to introduce James Johnson.
Thank you, everyone. My name is James Johnson. I'm running for the District 2 seat against Brian. You know, I started writing down a speech to give about myself and all the things that you might expect to hear from a candidate. I love Decatur. The schools are great. We've lived here for 9 years. I'm really proud to be a part of the community, and I really want to increase my role in the community, and this is a good way to do it. But that's kind of crap, because all of you feel that way. And so if I were to say that, it doesn't really do anything. So I'll tell you why. I am the least political person in this room. And if you had told me 4 months ago that I'd be doing this, I would say you're crazy. But what I noticed, and what I've noticed for the past few years, is that we've got basically the same old leadership just keeps perpetuating itself. And you see it in terms of what people say they'll do as far as running for office. And so you've got this issue where you go on the candidates' websites, and I did that, and everyone says, well, Decatur's great, but we have these problems. We've got over-enrollment, we've got a diversity problem, we've got tax issues, we've got green space issues. We have some real challenges. But you should vote for me because I've been rubbing shoulders with current leadership for the past 4 years, and they have supported me. And look, on my website it says that I'm their guy. So we've got these challenges that old leadership has created. But vote for me, even though I've been a part of that, because I'll do something different. And we see over and over again, nothing really changes. And so I looked and said, you know what, I might as well run just to see what happens. I've got some fresh ideas. I've got some interest. I think I can give you concrete answers as where this city should go and how do we get there. Because I think we all want the same thing. My kid's going to go to Winnona Park in a couple of years. I want her to go to Caltech one day. That's my dream. And I think she can get there with this school district. And I think if we do some things that to improve it, we can make every kid be able to go wherever they want to go. I want to see people come to this city, spend money, such that our taxes stay the same, or you know what, I don't like to talk about the tax issue because frankly I'm with Julie. I think some of us can't afford to pay more. I don't think I pay enough. Frankly, my kid's going to go to a good school one day and I will have paid minimum money to get there. So frankly, I'm not going to talk to you about taxes anymore. That's my position. But I will talk to you about what we can do to improve downtown, what we can get more people in this city, concrete steps we can do. If diversity is a big issue, and I think it is, if it's really a big issue, there are concrete steps we can take to keep people where they're at. And so at some point, we don't look up in 10 years and this is a lily white town. Because if I wanted that, I'd move back to East Cobb or Douglasville, where I'm from, and I don't want that. So I think the thing I can bring to the table is a fresh perspective. I'm not beholden to anybody. I haven't been planning this for 4 years. I decided a month ago. So I think I can give you my perspective. If you like it, great. If not, you won't hurt my feelings if you vote against me. But I think some of you want to hear something different. And some of you want to hear from somebody who's not just a part of the same old circles. And I'm your guy. So I hope you ask me some good questions tonight. I'm going to give you my honest answer one way or the other. If you like it, good. If not, that's okay. But I'm doing this just to let everybody know that there are a lot of people like me who are interested, who maybe haven't checked the boxes and done the things that there's this perception we're supposed to do. They still have thoughts and interests and ideas. And if I don't win, and I'm a realist, but maybe some of you guys will say, you know what, next time I'll run. And I hope you do.
Two candidates for Board of Education.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening, and thank you, Winnona Association, for hosting. My name is Tasha White, and I'm running for District 2 School Board for the City Schools of Decatur. And when I think about some of the reasons why I'm running, the first thing that comes to mind is I have a heart to serve. I'm a social worker by trade, and it was definitely one of my most rewarding careers thus far. And after having children, I kind of changed my focus to being a mother. I have a student at Decatur High. My son is at the 4-5, and then I have a little one that will be at Winnona in 2 years. So we're definitely vested, and the reason why we moved here, the number one reason why we moved here, was for the schools, and I'm sure there are a few people in here that have that same story. And so this opportunity came to play. I met with Julie Rain to really get an idea of what this entails. What does it take, and do I have what it takes? And honestly wanted to get her opinion as well. After being on the board for 12 years, do I have what it takes? Did she feel I have what it takes for this position? So what I like to do when I get on the board is to continue that conversation about diversity. I think everybody has a concern there for our community as well as our schools. I also want to make sure that every child receives the quality education that we all talk about and that we're all here. So regardless of race, regardless of economic status, and regardless of ability level, when they leave this school system, I want everyone to have that same high quality experience. And lastly, when I talk to the community, I've been out knocking on doors, and the number one issue that I'm hearing is growth. How are we going to handle the growth? How are we going to manage the growth? So I think the board has done a very good job in getting the GO bond forward, and I fully support it. And the reason I support it is because I did the research, and I looked at some of the alternatives. The trailers, the bigger classrooms, renting out space outside of our community, alternate schedules. And those alternatives I don't think were good for you guys, the community, and they didn't work for me and my family. So I think I'm the best candidate for this. I'm confident that I can do the job that's needed to be done to continue what the school board has already done. They've done such a good job with the schools, and I plan on just carrying that on. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom DeSimone. I'm running for school board, District 2, Post B, City Schools of Decatur. Now, I don't know about any of you that have kids in the system, but I did not put my kids in the City Schools of Decatur so they could learn in trailers. Now, I know we have these fancy names for them, like learning cottages and modular classrooms, but the truth is they're trailers and kids should not be learning in them. It's not a long-term solution. So I really believe we need to pass the bond. Right now, we're at a crossroads where we could do some serious damage to our school's reputation. If we don't pass the bond, we are going to have trailers. And if you look at our student population right now, the number of students enrolled in our school system is around 42,043 students right now. That number is projected to increase to 6,296 by the year 2020. If we don't pass that bond, we run the very real risk of damaging one of the most important assets that this town has, and that's our public education system. So I highly recommend that you all seriously consider voting yes on the bond issue. The second thing I'd like to talk about is diversity. Now, I think a lot of candidates come up here and they overpromise and underdeliver on that issue. Now, I want you to know that when I talk about promoting diversity, being passionate about it, I can back that up with actual actions. Part of what I've done as an attorney is offer pro bono services to low-income and minority clients for years. And I think this is important because I think that everyone, regardless of race, religion, or financial means, should be seen as equal before the law. So I've been in the trenches and in the courtrooms fighting for the rights of low-income clients and minority clients on a regular basis. I can tell you about the black family that I defended in a unlawful eviction proceeding. What was their crime? They complained to their landlord about a rat infestation. The landlord thought it'd be cheaper to evict them than to just, hire an exterminator. I also represented 4 Central American workers whose employer thought that, you know what, these guys don't speak English. I could just not pay them. He was wrong. Because his clients found us, we took him to court, and we got a judgment making him pay for every cent that he tried to take away from my clients. But most important, the pro bono work that I've done is I've helped children of all races throughout DeKalb and Fulton County and through the truancy intervention program. What that is the school appointed me as an attorney to work with the child and the family to work with the child who's in danger of dropping out of school. And what we do is we work together, come up with a plan to keep that child in school. So I think what I want to do is bring that same passion for advocacy to our diversity initiatives through the school board. And last, I think I bring a number of qualifications to this position that my opponent does not. First of all, I've actually been a teacher before. I worked as a substitute teacher at the Randolph Township Board of Education up in New Jersey. So I've been inside a classroom before, on the teacher side. The other thing is that I have a microbiology degree. I worked as a biotechnician for Merck. I work as a patent litigator. You might ask, why is that important? Because more and more schools are pushing STEM initiatives. Those are science, technology, engineering, and math. Now what that is, those are the careers where there's the most opportunity, the highest paying jobs, to the point where companies like IBM, GE, they're having to actually import people because they can't fill those positions. I see that my time is up, so if you feel that you want someone that has both the mind and the heart to guide us through some very challenging times, I would say, please vote for Tom DeSimone. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. We've got 2 candidates. We have our position.
Change things around a little bit there. My name is John Ridley. I've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years. I have 2 sons that went all the way through this school, so I'm very familiar with it. Of course, it looks a little different now than it did those many years ago, but nonetheless, I'm very familiar with it. I'm running for a couple different reasons. One, I've got the time. I'm retired now. Primarily because, for medical reasons, I can't do what I used to be able to do. I'm a heart patient, but I'm okay now, thanks to stammering, which is why I'm able to get back out and do things. And it's kind of changed my perspective on what's important and what's not important. And what's important to me is doing something for the community, trying to do something to help with our school kids and to have a great community. And that's what's really important to me. That's far more important to me than anything material is trying to make a contribution. I'd like to talk about three things. I'd like to talk about planning, I'd like to talk about management, and I'd like to talk about leadership. And I think those are very important. And I think what we have and what Decatur is missing is Decatur is missing clear, assertive, informed leadership is what it's missing. And it's missing it for two reasons. It's missing it from a systemic point of view because of the form of government we have. We have a form of government that's been in place since 1922. We haven't had an elected mayor since 1922. Why is that? It was done as a reaction to women's suffrage. There were some people who thought this was a way to disenfranchise people and that they didn't want to participate. And that's kind of a bunch of silliness if you look at it from our perspective today, all these many years later. But more importantly than the fact that it's a historic relic and that only 15 cities in Georgia don't have elected mayors, the mayor is at a major disadvantage because the mayor in Decatur is not really a mayor. The mayor in Decatur is a ceremonial position. The mayor in Decatur has no executive or administrative authority. And as Bill Floyd learned when he was mayor, and tried to deal with other local governments, when you walk in the room, everybody knows that you're not elected by the people of Decatur to speak for them. They all know that. So it makes it incredibly difficult. And he talked about this in his 2012 State of the City address about how important it was that we change this because it put us at a major disadvantage. We don't need to be protected from, the big bad bear by benevolent bureaucracy that's going to magically take care of us. We're all grown people. We pay a lot of money to live in this, what I call a private club. And you should have you have a right to an accountable government, a government that works for you. The government doesn't belong to the people at City Hall or the people on various boards and commissions. They're just temporary placeholders there. The government really belongs to all the people in Decatur, and we need a government that's directly accountable to the voters. The second thing I want to talk about, which is really the reason we have a lack of leadership, and it shows itself in the issue of how to deal with overcrowding in the schools. And there are things the City Commission can do to help the schools. The $75 million gets us down the road, but it doesn't. It takes a while, and it's not going to be anything. There are things that the city can do immediately to help, and I want to talk about those too. We can do things like repurpose property that the city already owns. We can do things like look at other educational facilities as a part of the annexation process and use them instead of going out and buying property and building schools. There's a lot of things we can do to be very cost effective about our money. We can use the parking authority, for example, to build a parking facility, a shared facility in downtown, instead of asking you to pay for it through school dollars. So those are the kind of things I want to talk about, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about leadership and the difference between leadership and management. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And last but not least.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Thank you, Winnona Park Neighborhood Association, for holding this forum tonight. Thank all of you for coming out tonight. My name is Tony Powers, and I'm running for the at-large City Commission seat. And tonight is not about checking boxes or touting our resumes. It's about you here in this room. And I have some numbers that I want to give you in the form of years. I'm going to start with 1978. What's so significant about 1978? We had an abundance of abandoned homes here in the city. Our city leaders saw that, and they came up with a plan. That plan was a dollar home program. It brought my mother and I here to Decatur from a situation that was far more critical than the situation here. The city leaders had a plan. My mother had a plan for her only son as a working mother. Now, while we don't have dollar homes anymore, we still have similar challenges, and we will meet those similar challenges. 1982, our city leaders looked at downtown They saw it as a bastion of hope, yet no one came. And once again, there was a plan. It was the Town Center Plan of 1982. It brought new life to downtown. And once again, I saw that change. Being a working mother, my mom had a contract to clean a couple banks downtown. I saw firsthand how abandoned and how empty Decatur became after 5 p.m. That's not the case anymore. At 5 p.m., it's just getting started. The year 2000, our first strategic plan. Decatur had found itself in the midst of a growth spurt. Our city leaders came together with all of us and said, hey, let's figure out the next step. And guess what? We did as a community. And then in 2002, we had an issue with our schools. And guess what? We all stepped up again. In 2002, we had the school study circles. And guess what? We have one of the most amazing school systems in this country. Because we all took part in that process. 2010, our plan was 10 years old. It's time to reevaluate. And guess what? We all sat at the table. Some of us facilitated. Some of us sat across from the facilitators. All of our voices were heard. 2015, we are together in Decatur, addressing our diversity issue. And guess what? We will resolve that issue as well, because we are united in that front. And why are all these dates important? I've seen each and every one of those. I've been a part of each and every one of those, tirelessly. My time, my energy, my talent, it's all been a process that we together have gotten to. So today I stand before you to say, hey, we have yet another step. On November 3rd, you have an opportunity to choose your next at-large city commissioner. My name is Tony Powers. I hope I will be that choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right, thank you all candidates. If anybody else has a couple of questions, we would be glad to take those up for you now. It's fun part of the whole evening, the Q&A session. We have Judge Bob Leach again, and he'll be conducting the Q&A session.
Good evening, everyone. Pass the questions into the bank with the basket. And James, I'm glad you got something to bring, because I thought when I asked questions this time, I thought I'd start, be the first person, somebody different who started speeches, talk. Brian was first, but he started answering the first question. Sure. And everybody's, not everybody, almost all you talk about diversity and the value of diversity. We've got several questions, and some from the schools board candidates, how do you increase student diversity, and the city commission, how do you change the diversity in the city? And so I thought I'd ask you all to address, how do you concretely do something? My own take on it is that you need to change, or change who moves into the city. At least in the little around my neighborhood, it's gotten richer and whiter. So James, take a shot.
So the big misnomer, and I think I'm right, and I think if you think about it, you'll agree with me. The big misnomer is that we can do something to increase diversity. Not true. With the one or two minor exceptions I'll talk to you about in a second, we are as diverse as we're probably going to be. The problem is people can't come here to live. It's too expensive. And people are getting priced out. And the people who are coming in to replace them are the owners of $900,000 infill houses. And guess what? They're typically white. So it's not a matter of what can we do to increase diversity. Frankly, and again, maybe this is a leadership problem. I think it is. It's a problem of how do we keep what we have left. And here's how we do it. Number one, you require any new developer who's going to build a downtown apartment to set aside spaces and rooms and houses for lower income people. So give them a place to live. Don't price them out of the system. Second, you have to reward people who are keeping places where lower income people can live. There are a ton of apartments around town, and they're awesome, and they serve people well. I represent a lot of developers. I'm a lawyer. And I know that there are developers saying, I want that apartment complex right there. And yes, it serves a very diverse group of people, and they don't have a whole ton of money. I want to buy that place and kick them out so that I can build $5 million houses right next to each other. And right now the plan allows them to do that. And there's no real incentive for that apartment owner to say, you know what, I kind of like things how they are. I think I'm serving the community that way. We need to change that. We can't let this be a place where it's just simply going to be $1 million infill houses and so on. We can't. If you want diversity, you can't allow that to happen. The third is we need to continue to address tax issues with lower income people. The homestead exemption for seniors is a good start, but we have enough computers in this town where we can actually look and see what people are earning and adjust taxes based on income, or at least address some lower income people so they're not being priced out with taxes. And there's about 15 more, but I ran out of time.
So just pass it on to you. And you.
So when I speak about diversity, I speak on it in many different forms. Obviously being race is definitely one of those parts of that conversation, but also diversity in thought, diversity in experience, diversity in gender, and diversity in age. And I think that we really need to take a good look at all of those areas. So for example, diversity with age, I've had an opportunity over this last year to meet with seniors and help them with their taxes, help them fill out their appeals, help them turn in their appeals. And I was glad to hear that a few of them are receiving those appeals back and have been able to receive those. Because we want to keep our seniors here. Because what happens is when the seniors leave, then those houses are torn down, and then more families are coming in with more kids. And I want the experience, I want my children to have the experience of seniors in our neighborhood. I want to be able to send my daughter across the street to Miss Moore and see if she needs help with anything, putting her groceries up. And I think that that will allow my child to have a more well-rounded experience. And so when we're talking about also in leadership, in our admin, when we're electing, when we're hiring, that's when we have these conversations. We don't have the conversations after people are hired. We have them before. And we look at everything along with experience. We look at, like I said, diversity of thought, gender, age, and experience. I think those are all important and all inclusive. Thank you.
Thomas?
Thank you. I agree with Tasha that diversity is kind of a multifaceted term. It doesn't, because I think people literally look at it sometimes as a black and white thing. But again, I want to go back to my opening statement where as board members, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So I want to give you a concrete example of something that I think that as a board member we can address that would help with diversity. And I pulled the 2014 College and Career Ready Performance Index, or people refer to it as a CCRPI, which is a standardized test that students take. And I have the high school scores here. And if you look at the scores for Black, Hispanic, and economically disadvantaged students, you're going to see a lot of red flags here. That means that they're performing, they're not reaching their state or subgroup performance targets. As a board member, I think we need to do a better job of finding out why we're failing those students. What can we do to prepare them better for those tests and help them achieve better? I think there's a similar trend with our IB program at the high school as well, the interbaccalaureate program. The number of minority students who are signing up for those programs lags their white counterparts. Again, we need to have the conversation of why is that happening? What can we do to increase participation? I think that's a failure of the school system and it's something that needs to be addressed. Another thing that I think we can do, and Tasha touched on this as well, is to help people in the town by lowering their tax burden, stay here. I know there are a lot of older people here who've been here for decades that are in danger of being forced out by our school taxes. And so, again, that's not something as a school board that we can wave a magic wand and have that passed. That has to go to the Golden Dome. The Georgia legislature has to pass that. But we can push those initiatives, and we can, try to make that happen. I have to tell you that one of the most interesting parts of going to door is speaking with some of the families that have been here for years. And, I hate to see them leave. That's a part of the city of Decatur's history. I mean, it's so interesting to hear about what the town used to be like. So I think every time that taxes push a resident out, we lose a little something of our town. So those are just some ideas that I have. Thanks.
John, would you like this mic? You can pull it out there and stand up if you want.
Oh, I can?
Yeah. Just undo the tape and give it a rip. I don't know how far it goes, but it goes somewhere.
Yeah, let me just say about, are we on here? Yeah. We are? Let me say about, there are things we can do, and let's be realistic, there are things that we can't do. We can't control long-term demographic trends that are nationwide trends of migrations of people in and out of urban areas and in and out of suburban areas and that kind of thing. That's just a fact of life. That's America. It's been going on since, long before I've been around. I mean, it's been going on. But there are things we can do. And one of the things we can do is to actually build on what's in the 2010 strategic plan. One of the things that it suggests is that it is the duty of the Planning Commission to take time and to study the ordinances and to study the building codes and make sure that we're not doing things that interfere with diversity, and they even mention by name things like mother-in-law suites. Well, I know there's a problem with R60 zoning and permeable space and putting an outbuilding in the back or a garage that some people are having to sign affidavits and say, well, they're not even going to let their mother-in-law live there because it violates the zoning law. That's the kind of thing that, maybe we ought to think about that for a minute. I don't know that kind of review has been done. Planning is not something that you do and you're done. It's like a job and get together, everybody talks about it, you make a document, and everybody goes home, and then you think about it 5 years later. It's an ongoing thing that you have to do. It's an ongoing thing. I've never heard of any battle ever fought that went by based on the plan that they started with. It takes leadership of people willing to provide leadership to be able to call plays from scrimmage. I've never seen a football game go totally according to plan. You got to have people who understand the plan, who understand what the needs of the community are, and then you got to be able to work constructively to call plays from scrimmage. That's part of the leadership role that's missing. We don't have that. That's not going on. And I think that's something we can address, and we can deal with the diversity thing, and at least those portions of which the city government has control over. I mean, we have control over the land use plan. We're required by law to review the land use plan annually and to make a report. The planning commission is to report to the city commission about whether it's serving our needs. But that's not happening. I got an open records request looking for the reports. They don't exist. So we can do a little better job of this.
Donnie?
So yes, planning is a measure of the city. And something that you all should know that in 2008, we led an infill task force. And part of that task force that I led, about 60 to 70 of us held meetings here in the city, throughout the city. And one of the things that came out of that was this movement for smaller homes, accessory dwellings, accessory buildings. And part of the new UDO addressed accessory dwelling units to look at having in-law suites. so that it was in our current code. We have looked at that. We have adopted that UDO. Those measures are in place. Those are things that are concrete actions that our city leaders have taken. Many of you participated in that process. Diversity is an issue that's not just black or white, like everyone says. I can tell you how many friends I have that have 2 mothers, 2 fathers. They're Asian. They're Somali. Diversity does not just begin with black or white. It's young and old. What makes Decatur great is that melting pot. It's a great melting pot that we have to continue, not just by talk, but by our actions. So in 2008, when Mayor Floyd asked me to lead a task force, I stepped up and said, absolutely, let's figure out how to get that done. And we led that task force, and that document that came out of that task force helped become the UDO. So it's not just about empty actions. Our city leaders, we lead. We step up and we do what's required. My mother's in this room. I fully expect her to retire and age in place and not have to leave her home. As many of you in this room, we all have children. We've all raised families or raising families. All these issues still to be a burning fight. We will get that done and continue to focus on those things that matter to us. Thank you.
Thank you. There are several questions about green. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to say something?
Yeah, diversity. Diversity means different things to different people, whether it's race, economics, sexual orientation, disabilities, religion, age. All of it's diversity. We have all of it in Decatur, and that's what makes Decatur great. A couple actionable steps. First and foremost, we need to continue to make Decatur a welcoming place to everybody. Whether that's saying hi to people on the streets, whether that's our great police force, our great fire department, we need to continue to make Decatur a welcoming place to everybody, no matter what diversity they have. Secondly, we've already taken the school board, and I commend them, and then the city commission right behind them. I think it's great that they're reducing the taxes for seniors. That's a step in the right direction. Third, I think there's a lot of things that we need to continue to do or start to do regarding housing. First off, I think there's, and I could be a little bit off, but I think there's 401 houses, affordable houses or Section 8 housing in the Decatur Housing Authority with Allen Wilson and Gateway and Oakview. That's not enough if we really want to keep diversity. We need to continue to increase that. Secondly, we need to have more what I'll call workforce housing for school teachers that are in our community, for firefighters, for policemen. They need to be able to afford that. We need to make actionable items, as a lot of people have said here, and cut and put a certain percentage on new developments that are coming in here to make sure that we have that. The last two things are stuff that's already in place, and Tony has already mentioned it, and I know very well, as being the chair of the zoning board. We have with UDO adopted rules that give permission to accessory dwellings and accessory buildings. Frankly, it makes it easier. And that's because we want people to, if they want to, age in place. And secondly, and I saw it at the zoning board meeting last week, we've actually, with the UDO, taken away, we actually had a minimum square footage for a house in Decatur. I think it was 1,500 square feet up until the UDO. We've actually taken that away to try to change the housing stock, to make it different for people. So I think we have to continue those policies, and I really think we need to just make Decatur continue to be diverse.
Thank you. Did I leave anybody else out? Any more questions to be passed in? There's several questions about green space, and so I want to ask all of you this. I'm going to start with the city commission folks, but if the school board people want to pitch in towards the end, you're welcome to, although it's not specifically directed to you all. So John, I'll be starting with you, but it's the general question is how do we preserve or increase green space? It seems to me one of the questioners says that they've read that we do not meet national standards for the amount of increase of green space in the city is what's recommended, if you will. And I think we all know some green spaces around now that are empty there's the large housing authority property at Trinity and Commerce. There's the small Agnes Scott property in North McDonough and College. And you all may know of some others. There's talk about Boys and Girls Club. But what do you think we can do, and how much are you willing to fight for increasing the amount of green space? John?
That's an excellent question. And there are very specific things we can do. One of the things that I think we ought to consider doing is going ahead and using some of the money in the fund balance, and let's go ahead and pay the rest of the money off for the property at the corner of Claremont and Scott as part of the gardens that are there. That makes a lot of sense to me. That was a gift to the city next door when I was on the commission many years ago by some very wonderful and well-intentioned people who wanted to preserve that. I think the city needs to do more to actually budget for green space. There are other opportunities that we need to move on before we lose them. We need to do something about what's going to happen to the property where the Boys and Girls Club is. There's real opportunity there. We need to move on the property that's now currently been zoned not for institutional, but has been rezoned for commercial, that is now an empty lot sitting at the corner of Trinity and Commerce. It's a very nice, peaceful little lot. It adds some nice green space, but believe me, it's not going to stay there very long. The other thing we need to do is we need to consider, when we're considering annexation, we need to consider green space. And the absolute jewel opportunity of a lifetime is where the Methodist Children's Home is. And if we don't do something about preserving that as a group for public use and a green space, it's going to be turned into a high density apartment complex is what it's going to turn into. And that would be a horrible shame. And once that happens, you can't get it back. So there are tangible, specific things that we can do now and that we need to keep our eye on in order to deal with green space. It doesn't have to be, we need to focus on getting things done that are tangible, not nice words and we'll talk about it or we'll have a process or whatever. Let's do some things. Let's get some things done.
Tony? Who in this room does not like green space? I mean, that's one thing that as a single-family homeowner, we all have our own private little piece of green space, be it our front yard or our backyard. But there are those that are downtown, which is in the next 5 years to be 30% of our population of the city of Decatur, don't have their tiny piece of green space. You know, one thing that I've explored, and I know they do it in other cities, in other counties, in other municipalities, is having an impact fee. That impact fee specifically would relate to green space. That impact fee would fund anytime that there is a residential construction project or there is a remodel permit pulled, you pay into that impact fee. That impact fee can be used to purchase this needed green space. You know, other cities do it. You know, it's not something that we've done, but it's something that I'm willing to explore. In terms of other properties, yes, annexation would potentially bring us other properties. Currently, the Methodist Children's Home is not in the city. We have begun to explore conversations with them, but that is currently owned by the Children's Methodist Home. As far as I know, there have been no talks about apartments or anything like that because we don't know what their intentions are. They're evaluating their mission and they will figure out what they want to do going forward. We have tiny little pockets all over. I know the city just purchased 2 acres of green space to bring our total acreage of green space to a little over 110 acres. While that doesn't seem like a lot, but we're only 4.2 square miles, so we have to be very creative and we continue to create these little pockets of green. The real key is I'm willing to do my part to fund it with anything I can do. I'm sure you are as well, because we all value that green space. Thank you.
Brian?
It doesn't surprise me, we got a green space comment here in Decatur, especially in the park, given the lack of green space here, as I mentioned in my opening comments. Green space is important to all of us, as Tony said, including myself. In fact, when I lived on Midway Road, I think that Dearborn Park was one of the crown jewels of Winnona Park and the city of Decatur. But given our small size and the tremendous growth, it's not surprising. We've obviously lost a lot of green space over the last couple of years. And if elected, that'll be one of my main priorities, to try to, responsibly add to our green space. However, with that being said, whether it's the property of the Boys and Girls Club, any of the other properties that have been referenced tonight, I want to be a good steward of your tax dollars. So if there's not something such as impact fees, which I would say we should explore, if absent that, if there's no other revenue coming in allotted to that, I think the city commission needs to be good stewards of your tax dollars. So I think any time we consider taking green space or buying green space, a cost-benefit analysis should be done. I sat in a city commission meeting last night where a year ago, the city commission had actually brought up, or the city had brought up 2 properties in a flood zone, where they valued them and they had appraisals valued, and let's say they were $500,000 together in a floodplain. And when it came back up for the grant, which was presented last night at the city commission meeting, it was over 100, and the grant was 600,000. So we were good. The city, they were going to give us money to buy this. When we came back and they had it appraised, when it actually came around, because government took some time, it was actually appraised at $120,000 more than the grant. I don't think you guys want your tax money going for something that's gone up that quickly. So I want to be a good steward of your money. But I do agree that we need to responsibly try to increase green space and absolutely maintain the stuff we have here. Thanks.
James?
I probably won't agree with too much that John says, but I do agree with him on this point. If you want to do something about green space, you have to do it yesterday. It's going to be gone. Given the rate of development in this town and given, frankly, what the city has allowed developers to do, if you don't go out today and identify parcels that you want to be green space and take whatever actions you need to take to dedicate those to green space, in 2 years there will be infill housing or a nice apartment complex, and that's gone forever. So that's what you have to do. There's no, once we get everybody on board, we need to start doing an analysis. No. You need to go out and do it immediately. And to Brian's point, we're not the only town that has ever had this problem. This issue of funding for green space is something that everyone deals with. But guess what? There are tax mechanisms and conservation easements. There are ways to fund these or to give the owners of that property incentive to part ways with it. Maybe not for all cash, but for future tax benefits. They can buy lots somewhere else and get those tax-free. I mean, there are a number of mechanisms by which to fund the purchase of green space without just us stripping a check. Tony's idea about impact fees is okay. I have the same idea for schools. So I'd rather spend that money for schools rather than green space, because green space you can give tax incentives and other things like that. But the key is you have to do it now. Can't wait. If you wait a year, if you wait 2 years, it's gone.
Tasha and Thomas, do y'all want to pitch in anywhere the school board can help out? Give us all those playgrounds or something?
I would probably just reiterate what Brad said at the beginning when he was talking about the bond and how some of that green space will be taken up by trailers if this bond doesn't pass. And so as a school board member, I would really stress using that money to go on so that we can build schools, add to the classrooms, and not use up the green space with trailers.
Thanks. I just have a couple of comments to add to that. And I think part of the reason why people come here is because of our school. Somebody who moved here 5 years ago, one of the things I really enjoy doing with our 2 children, and my nephew was taken into the parks around here, and one of the things we like to do is go down to the end of Chevelle and the end of Far Road and walk through that trail over to Dearborn Park, as Brian mentioned. In fact, I've run into Brian on that trail in the past. But one thing that I've noticed is that somebody started putting up surveyor's tape all around that area, and my understanding just through the grapevine is that it's going to be a bunch of infill houses. So I think that's being held up, or I don't know what the status of that project is right now, but we're really running into some, really difficult choices about appreciating property value and how we're going to balance that with keeping the green spaces we have. But once you lose that green space, you can't bring it back. You can't, like Joni Mitchell said, you're going to pay paradise and put up a parking lot. I don't want to see that happening in my town to the extent that we can avoid it. But I am realistic and I understand that there's economics involved. But I just want to say that to the extent that we can save those areas and put aside money to preserve them, I think we should do it.
Next, I have a school board question, and it really is fairly concrete. We talked about, Thomas mentioned the lower achievement rate, achievements, at least one of the tests, for various minorities. And so for both of you, do you think that's primarily socioeconomic? Is it race? Is it sexual preference? Is it what do you think causes it? What do you think is the fundamental part of it? And then how do we address it?
Well, I think you always run into a problem when you try to ascribe achievement to race. I think that any child of any race, when put in the right environment, can achieve just as well as another child of race. So I think what it comes down to, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is parental involvement and parental engagement. And I think to the extent that the board can push initiatives to get parents involved and to get children, I really think that children take their cues from their parents more than we think that they do. And so just having a parent who's involved, I think, increases the chance of success on standardized tests and academic achievement in general. When I do that work with the Truancy Intervention Project, one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of the parents that I deal with, instead of being alarmed or upset that they're being contacted by an attorney and being called before a judge, most of them are apathetic and kind of annoyed that they're having to deal with this entire process. And I think that attitude kind of rolls downhill. And I'm not trying to say that it's a racial or socioeconomic thing. I think there are plenty of very affluent parents who don't take an active role in their children's education. And there are also parents of very low, low economic means who are extremely involved in their children's education. So, to make a long story short, I think that any kid in any race or any socioeconomic bracket can achieve well. It's just a matter of the school being involved, of parents being involved, and I think to the extent that we can design programs where we make parents part of education and where we let these kids know that they have a support system, I think we can close those gaps.
I've been in a few other school districts where parent involvement was very low. PTA meetings, no turnout, low volunteers, and I just see the impact on many of the kids in those school systems. One of the reasons why we moved here was again for the schools, and I saw how involved Decatur parents are with their school, with this school. And that was definitely something that my husband and I noticed and we appreciated. And so I do notice and see, especially speaking out with the community, how involved parents are with the kids in this school system. I also love what Dr. Edwards did a few years ago when she brought in the early childhood learning. I think that is where you see a major achievement gap, is when 0 to 3 and pre-K age aren't getting the tools that they need. And so when they get to kindergarten, they're not prepared. And so here we have College Heights, which has been noticed across the nation for what it's done. And so I think we have something in place here in the city of Decatur to help with that achievement gap, and that is with College Heights. And when I think about College Heights, when I've gone there trying to get my daughter in there, I'm very pleased with what that school has done, and every parent that I know personally who's had their child there has spoken highly of it. I've always heard good things about College Heights. Lastly, I had the opportunity to sit and listen to Doug Faust, and he talked about what he's doing with the Housing Authority. And he didn't just talk about the housing, he talked about what he does with what they do with the kids in their program. And he went through a plethora of programs that are offered to the residents in the Housing Authority. Back to school programs, after school programs, summer programs, reading programs. I mean, he just went on and on. So that was very refreshing to know that sometimes with the socioeconomic breakdown, that can be where we see some of the gap. And so again, here in Decatur, at the Housing Authority, they are doing something about that as well. Thank you.
I just have one short comment to use up all my time. As great as the Early Childhood Learning Center is, that's another perfect example of how overcrowding is affecting people, because that's still on a lottery system. So I would love for everybody in Decatur to have their kid in there, get into a free pre-K program, but space and resources, we just can't do it. So that's something I think we need to work on as well.
This is for the city commission. It's a combination of multiple questions. It's about some connectivity between the south side of town and the north side of town. For example, you can't get a wheelchair you can't ride a wheelchair safely in the south side of town to the north side of town. The sidewalks don't allow you to get across the railroad tracks. I guess you could go to College or Columbia Road. Some people want more bike paths. Some people say the traffic is awful. We can't drive over there. Heading drive from Winnona Park to the other side to downtown Decatur without having to go through Trinity, which always has too much traffic. Those kinds of little issues are how we get around and how we get to our green space and so forth. Tony, do you want to start on that?
Yeah, it is a challenge. It is a challenge to get from one side of the other. But one thing I will point out, in 2008 when the economy tanked, we had a number of projects in the hopper that fell short of their expectations. We had the project, the Arlo at the Trinity Triangle. We had the 315 Ponds redevelopment, and we had the Alexa. Little did we know, again, that the economy would tank, all these projects would come online simultaneously, which has led to a massive amount of traffic downtown, which we all regret. That traffic will end. Construction traffic will end, and it will end soon. It's like being on 285. You know it takes you 20 minutes to get from Decatur to the perimeter, but let there be one accident or one lane closed. So these are short-term problems. We will get beyond that. In terms of connectivity, there are 2 projects in the hopper that have been on the DOT's website and in their planning stages for a number of years. The DOT marches at their own pace. We have been active in getting those, one, crosswalks up here at the Dairy Queen, and the second one down at the Valero station to get those transitioned into more traditional 4-way intersections. That will happen. We've just got to keep on the DOT and let them know that we don't want to wait on their timeline. We want this done, and we will get it done. In terms of the wheelchair and connectivity, it'd be great if we didn't have to deal with CSX, but we do. We have to deal with the railroad, so I entertain any ideas, of any thoughts of, some connectivity. We've got the underpass up here at Agnes Scott. Unfortunately, it won't accommodate a wheelchair. We can figure something out. We've got a lot of smart people in this town. And the good thing is, your city commissioners, they do listen. Thank you.
Brian?
Yeah, no, connectivity between the north and south side is obviously a very big issue. I mean, you have to go all the way, as we all know, and especially at Winnona Park, you gotta go all the way to Under Commerce by the Ice House Lofts, or all the way over to Atlanta Avenue, in front of Thinking Man to get across, or a wheelchair to get across. You don't have a wheelchair, which is just as important for people with disabilities as people without, then maybe you can go under Agnes Scott, but, that's even with a bike and putting it on the rail is pretty tough. There are 2 projects, granted it's taking longer than it should, in my opinion, to redo the railroads. And I won't even touch the fact that they closed that street near Dairy Queen, which I know all of us in Winnona Park are. But we'll table that when we talk after. That was a lightning rod, and I agree with it all. But we need to make safer streets, and we need to make safer crossings. There's work coming, it's just taking too long, and there's 2 major arteries to the railroad sections. But I mean, if we talk to just safer crossings, you have to talk about safer streets. I think we really need to look into, and I know we are, into speed limits. And maybe that means lowering the speed limits, because I sat through a presentation, I think it was at our last Winnona Park meeting, or no, it's the Comp Campbell event, where technically they could go 10 miles over and would before writing a ticket. So we need to really revisit looking at speed limits, and that may necessitate changing some designations of streets to residential streets. We need safer streets. I'm a biker, my kids are bikers, walkers, we all are. Whether we do it a lot or little, we need to have safer streets, safer intersections, and potentially look at some bike lanes to advocate for, even more rideability and walkability of our streets. There are several streets that are pretty big that don't have bike lanes. If you look at McDonald, if you look at Oakland, where I am. So we need to invest in better crossings. But overall, it's a bigger question of safer streets.
James?
I generally agree with that. I live on South Candler, and that road is a nightmare. And I'm part of the Calm Candler initiative to try to lower the speed limits and get some traffic calming. Because frankly, if you're walking along that sidewalk and a car bus is going by you at 70 miles an hour, which no shit happens, I'm not making that up. You're not going to walk on that sidewalk and you're damn well not going to bike on it. So that means you get in your car and you drive. And that's really a shame because our streets are nice. So you need some street calming. You need bike lanes. I'm for. I have a lot of friends who ride bikes. Me, personally, I'm a scooter driver. So I think I have the best of both worlds living around those places. I can't tell everybody to go buy a scooter, which would be the easiest solution. So I do think that traffic calming is a huge thing. Speed limits, bike lanes, I think would work. And like everybody said, I'm not an engineer. I can come up with a lot of answers to questions, but not the engineer of how do we make something safe under the railroad tracks. So I think that's something we're going to have to think about. I'm not that smart on that issue.
John?
Excuse me. Yeah, let me say about the railroad track, as long as everybody, so we can get everybody on the same page. The railroad track is under federal jurisdiction. We don't have any capacity as a municipality, nor does the county, nor does the state, to regulate what the railroad does. The railroad could decide tomorrow morning that they wanted to close the at-grade crossings indicator, and there would be absolutely nothing we could do about it. Currently, we don't even have a contingency plan about that. They're not obligated to tell the city when they want to do maintenance on the thing. And I know for a fact that in my 30 years here, at least more than once, they've decided to replace or rebuild the thing and just all of a sudden close. Think about what that would do in the morning trying to get people to the high school if you had that kind of problem. So this is a planning issue. I mean, once again, we're back to really fundamental planning issues about what are we going to do. And we have to live in the real world. I mean, there is, of course, DOT, but even DOT, the state DOT, can't regulate CSX. I mean, so that's an important thing to remember. But that's why there's no sidewalks, because technically, or crosswalks across the railroad tracks, because technically you're trespassing when you walk across their land. But we've lived in harmony since 1823 with those railroad tracks. I think we can figure out a way to get it done or do something for being safer. I have one other thing I want to bring up, and I want to talk about something real fast about paying for green space. It's time to think out of the box. I agree with Mr. Johnson about some of the tax-related things, but there are other things that can be done, like private-public partnerships. Think about what a wonderful piece of property the Children's Methodist Home would be if we turned it into the major competitor in Metro Atlanta to Chastain for an outdoor music or venue for that kind of thing. That could be tastefully done in context with other things and have somebody else foot the bill other than you, the taxpayer. There are things that we can do. We just have to think out of the box and be creative.
Thank you. For the school board folks, there's a question about what you think, what you see the relationship between the school board and the school administration being now, and what you think it should be. And they give a couple categories. Is the school board just a rubber stamp to the superintendent's agenda? I guess we could ask the city commission people that too. They just do whatever the city manager says. Or does the school board actually regulate the activities of the superintendent, or do you think it's something else? And again, what do you think it is and what do you think it should be? Let's just do school.
One thing I've learned from many of my conversations with current school board members as well as past school board members is you really don't know what you don't know until you get in there. And we have this great opportunity now. We have Dr. Duty, who was just brought on. And so this is new blood, new eyes. And as a new school board member, I'll get the opportunity to really see what his vision is for this city. And the rest of the school board members will be able to do the same. And so we'll have to take that time and go on the retreats and learn how to work with each other and to try and bring forth the vision that he has for this school and for the school system. I think as a board member, we're there to listen to what the superintendent suggests and what they see for this city. And then we work together to hear everything. I think one of the qualities that I bring is that I have the ability to really listen to what is said, even if I don't necessarily agree. And then come from the standpoint of what do we agree on, and then how can we build from there. As far as the administration is concerned and the teachers, I mean, they're the lifeline, they're the bloodline. And so I would definitely do all that I could do in my power to foster a positive relationship. And I think, again, that starts from listening to what some of their concerns are and seeing how we can make sure that it's a great place to work, that they want to come to work and they are able to do what they were hired to do. There's a lot of applications that come in over and over and over again, so there is a big push. People want to work here, and so as a school board member, I would want to maintain that. I think the current school board has done a great job of that, and I would want to maintain having a great relationship with the admin.
Thomas?
One of the unique aspects of having a charter system school is that the individual schools within that system have a great degree of autonomy, more than in a traditional non-charter system. Now, I know a lot of people get confused on the difference between a charter school and a charter system. We're not a charter school, but we are a charter system. That means that each one of the schools in our district has its own school leadership team, and they have a high degree of autonomy in deciding how their specific school is run. So I think the board's role in that situation is, when a decision is made at a school leadership team level, it still has to go before the board, and the board would still have input over that. So I think that navigating that relationship is an interesting dynamic. The other thing is, I think that as board members, you would be greatly advocating your duty as a board member by just rubber stamping something that the superintendent says. I think that our role is to be informed and to provide a second opinion and to be there as a sounding board for the superintendent. But the idea that the superintendent would just be able to run all the decisions of the school board by almost by fiat is, there would basically be no reason for the board to exist. So I think that there needs to be a valuable interplay between the board and the superintendent where there's a two-way street of feedback. The superintendent can have an idea, and we should be, the board, should have the same input going back and forth. And I think that that's another dynamic that where the board is extremely valuable. You have those 5 people with 5 different opinions working with the superintendent to come up with the best solutions to problems. So that's pretty much my understanding of the dynamic and the way that I see the relationship between the board and the superintendent and the board and the school leadership team.
I think we're getting close to the end of our time, so I'll end it up with a tax question for everybody, which I know won't surprise you at least bit. Considering, well, on our neighborhood list, or at least a whole lot of people talk about their appraisals going up. We heard some talk tonight about the school board bond and the millage rates, and we certainly all see construction downtown. We should increase the tax base for the city. What do you see happening? Can we have increases enough that you can actually reduce taxes, not reduce millage rates, but taxes? Millage rate, to me as a taxpayer, it's a false number. I want to know what the bill is. Who gets to start first? Jay, I don't know, but your turn. Tony, is it your turn?
So we have a school, the schools have reduced the millage rate from a little over 20 to 18.66. And yes, we're still paying about the same amount different dynamic. Neighbors on the same street having, assessments go up or down. You absolutely will benefit from the properties downtown. The one thing that I do know that it's a concrete number, the 6 developments that we have downtown, there is a net surplus for the school system of a little over $1.2 million. Without that, there would be a bigger number to make up for the school board. That would be a bigger piece for us to pay. We've talked about annexation, and annexation is going to be very important. Our tax digest is made up of 90% of us single-family homeowners putting the bill, 10% commercial. On paper, the data really shouldn't work. We've heard that, but it does. Now, it's time to relieve that burden on our seniors because they're footing the bill still, and some of them still continue to do it willingly. It's amazing how many seniors I've talked to that said, we don't mind paying our way, we just don't want to pay the entire way. So it's going to be really important to make sure that we pass that exemption for our seniors. I'm willing to pay their portion to keep our city diverse because what happens when you replace a home where there were seniors and we get more kids and then we got another burden through our school system. So as a parent that has had kids go through the system, yeah, it's important to make sure that the kids coming up get that benefit of the great school. And it's important, again, to watch those numbers. Annex wherever it's appropriate, if and when the situation comes up again. Again, we're all here because we choose to be. Some of us are here for the schools. Some of us are here for the quality of life. Some of us have just moved here because we knew Decatur was hot and they wanted to be here anyway. I can't tell you how many people I spoke to that saying, and they're willing to pay the taxes. But again, we just have to look at those numbers and make sure that we can continue to keep our cities.
Let me go ahead and add something to this question, if you will. We talked about the reduction in taxes for seniors, which I've been delighted with, but that's going to be more taxes for all of you that are not under 65. Because the city commission is going to probably, the city staff is going to want the same amount of money. Let me juggle it up just for fun. James, how about you next?
I think I can give you an honest answer. If you're looking for me to say, elect me and your taxes will go down, don't elect me because it's not going to happen. I think all of us are somewhat willing to pay taxes, but look at what we talked about tonight. We talked about green space. We talked about increased funding for schools and additional school programs. We talked about bike lanes. We talked about transit. All those things cost money, and it's going to cost more money. Our taxes are going to go up. Just basic. And if you don't like it, you probably shouldn't live here, because anybody who tells you that they're going to implement all this cool stuff, but your taxes will stay the same, doesn't know what they're talking about. So you're going to pay more taxes. The issue is who pays them, and what do we do about seniors and low income? I look at it this way. People, we hear this talk about, well, people aren't moving here just for schools. They're moving here for other reasons. No. They are moving here for schools. If you talk to anybody who comes in and buys an $800,000 infant, because let's face it, that's all people are buying. There are no $200,000. There are no $300,000 houses. I've got friends with $500,000 in their pocket can't find a house because they can't afford an $800,000 house. But they want to live here because of schools. People are coming here. So the way I think about it is, you got a guy who can front $800,000 to buy an infill house. His thinking is, well, I'm going to do that because my alternative is to live somewhere else. Doesn't have a good school system. And I'm going to go send my kid to Pace Academy. And I've got 2 kids, so that's $60,000 a year. I can move here, and yeah, my taxes on my $800,000 house are $15,000, $16,000, and that's school and some other city stuff. I'm saving $45,000 a year. This is great. We ought to take that money. It's like I said the other night, there are people who are coming here. If you increase the taxes on that, or you call it an impact fee, you call it a tax increase on high earners, I don't know. Someone's willing to pay an extra $15 to keep their kids here rather than pay that $60 to go to Pace and live in a less desirable community. You have to look at things like that. And if that makes me a tax and spend Democrat, then again, you won't hurt my feelings if you don't vote for me. But you have to look at things like that, and then at the same time, offset those tax increases with tax decreases for lower income, for seniors. the bottom line though, if we want the city to be awesome, you know, you go to Europe and you go to these cities, you're like, this city's great, I wish I lived here. Because people pay a lot of taxes. And if we want the city to be awesome, you're going to pay them too. And I'm for it, and I think you should be also.
Tasha, I want to jump around. Keep you on your toes.
Well, as we've discussed a few times here, the school board has done their part the last couple of years in lowering the millage rate where they could to help ease the tax burden on our citizens. Also, there was an abundance last year, and what they did with that abundance was put it towards building, added to Renfro. And so instead of just holding on to that money and leaving it in their coffers, they've used it to help with the tax burden as well. We also have SPLOST that will come in, and we're not depending on that, but hopefully if we do get it, that will also help with some of the building and the adding to schools, and then potentially help with the tax burden with the schools. So each year, if I'm elected as your school board member, we will work each year to look at where can we lower, where is money coming in, and where can we ease the tax burden when it comes to the schools. Still keeping the schools at the rate that we need them to be, but how can we as a school board help ease that tax burden on our citizens? And I've seen, you know, going to the board meetings, how this is a discussion every time, and this is something that they look at every single month, and this is a discussion that they have. It's something that's very important, and they definitely listen to what the citizens are saying about their tax burden.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I want to address the issue about the tax burden and what's going on there. I mean, a millage rate doesn't really tell you much of anything, because that all depends on what the assessment percentage is and what the estimated fair market value is. Decatur is very unusual. We have a 50% instead of a 40%, like everybody else does in the state, which the state constitution requires. We have 50 because we had it before they changed the constitution. So you got to look at it all in perspective. So raising or lowering the millage doesn't really tell you much of anything about necessarily what you're going to pay or whatever. You got to look at the whole thing. And the point was well made about what am I really paying. Now, here's the deal, and this is the truth. The basic problem is that we've got a problem with the tax digest. We've got 85% of it is residential, about 15% of it is commercial. Okay, and it's been pretty steady on that course since the 2010 strategic plan. It's still about the same. There is a fundamental premise inside the strategic plan of 2010 that says you can solve this problem with infill, commercial infill in downtown. Well, according to the Carl Denson Institute, that's not possible. We don't have enough property to do development projects to get us off of the 15%. The only practical, we may move to 16, we may move to 16 and a half or 17, but we're not going to fundamentally change the burden. The only way to fundamentally change the burden is to restructure the digest. That means you've got to have a city that does annexations that you got to do. And that's just how it is. And this is our wonderful opportunity to fix a long-term problem. Decatur is surviving because we've done two things. It appears that we're surviving. We're keeping our head above water. We're doing it because we've had rapidly appreciating residential property values, and we all know that that's been going on. Okay, and the city government has been borrowing large sums of money. And the combination of those two things is not a sustainable trajectory for a financially sound city over a period of time. We've got to deal with that. You can't just, we're already close to our constitutional limit on general obligation bond debt. Okay, we borrowed money out the back door, we borrowed the certificates of participation and all kinds of creative finance. But the bottom line is those two lines are not sustainable. And the only way to address that is to do it through, to restructure the digest and to do it through annexation. And the solution is not, and there is no proof given in the 2010 strategic plan that no tangible, legitimate research or proof that says this issue can actually be addressed in a fundamental way through redevelopment or these small projects that we're putting into downtown. I mean, it's just, it doesn't exist, and I've never seen any research that says it does. So I think that's important to keep in mind. We cannot stay on the trajectory we're on. We've got to do something different. And we might want to consider one other thing, and then I'll stop. A land use plan and zoning map are two different things. A land use is what you want your city to be, what you envision, where you're going. Okay, and this is required of us under state law. A zoning map is giant. So if they're not the same thing.
Brian?
Yeah, I'll try to keep this short and sweet. First off, before I answer the question, I just want to stress, I don't think we can do anything with our tax digest that's going to upset or impact or threaten our fantastic school system and also the valuable services we have here. Our police force is among the best, our firefighters, I mean, they're awesome. So I don't think we can do anything that jeopardizes that first and foremost. But we are in a unique situation. Tony mentioned it, I think it was 88% or 90% residential funded is our tax base, and 10 to 12 commercial. That's an anomaly. We've been operating on it, but that obviously puts us in a tough position. We also, I think the last number I heard was 17% of our properties in the city are tax exempt. That means they're government. That means they're places of worship. I mean, places that give us diversity, going back to that. So we're in a hole. And Judge Leach, you're exactly right. If we reduce the taxes for the seniors, which I think is extremely important, where are we going to make that up if everything's held constant? Because we don't want to jeopardize our schools' funding. We don't want to jeopardize our services. And I think there's a couple things you do need to look at. I think you need to consider the A word. You need to consider annexation. I don't think we need to double the size of our city, but we need to strategically consider it. I also think we need to look at potentially putting some small fees on development that are going at. That we can flesh that out after, but I'll try to be short. I also think that whether you're on the school board or specifically speaking to what I'm running for, city commission, you need to take a fine eye and look at budgets. My background is in corporate finance. I look at numbers all the time. I think we have to look at what the city manager, with just an eye of skepticism. I think she does a great job, but I think someone mentioned before, if you don't question you're sitting on your board, you're not doing a good job. After doing all those things, if there is a surplus, I think it would be great to either give it back to the citizens or invest in the infrastructure of our community, or both.
Thomas?
I think that one of the biggest sins that a local government can commit is to levy incredibly high taxes and give you nothing to show for it. Fortunately, we don't live in that type of a town. We can look at our tax bill and you can see the tangible results of what you're paying for. You see a fantastic downtown area. You have a top-notch school system. So I think for now, a lot of people kind of, grin and bear it when their tax bill comes in and says, and you kind of say to yourself, well, it's high, but we're getting something for our money. And let me just give you some perspective. We moved down here from Long Island about 5 years ago. So when we saw our tax bill, we were like, yeah, this is great. So, everything is relative. But yeah, I agree that we can't continue to have that type of ratio of commercial versus residential tax. And there's going to reach a tipping point where it's just not going to be effective anymore. We're going to have to explore alternatives like annexation of commercial properties to bring that extra revenue in. One of the other things that we can't do is expect that the East Floast is going to be our, white knight coming in to save us, because first of all, those funds are tightly regulated on what you can spend them on. They do have to be voted on, and we all know how well the T-Floast did recently, so, it's not a done deal. I think people are a lot more willing to vote in favor of funding for sales tax to fund local schools than they are for our transportation projects, but it's not a given that the East Floast will pass. So we do need to look at all available sources for funding to try to remove some of the burden that our residential taxpayers have on them. So I think that annexation is one answer, and hopefully everyone here will support the East Floast. I think that comes up in 2016. I could be mistaken. But like I said, we need to consider all alternatives, and we need to get that tax digest into a better shape.
We've run out of time on our questions, and I don't know want to ask them to give up their final remarks and answer a question about annexation? Or do you want to just let them give their final remarks and go home? Is that, okay, I thought it was all, how many for annexation? How many for final remarks? That's a winner. They want to get out of here. Go for it.
First and foremost, I want to thank all you guys for coming out. This is one of the best Winnona Park Neighborhood Association and Friends meetings that I've seen. Thank you very much to Judge Leach, Seeger, Scott, and the rest of the WPNA. We're at a really interesting time in our city. School board has almost changed over completely after this election. We have a new superintendent. The city commission will heavily change over. It has in the last 5 years. We've had a lot of really tough challenges we've all talked about. Diversity, taxes, school. It's really, really important. And the bonds, the biggest of all. I think it's extremely important, no matter who you vote for here, all the great candidates, that you go out and vote, and that you tell your neighbors to vote. I think it's embarrassing how many people don't vote, because it's so important. You absolutely need to vote. When you vote, I hope you look for someone that has lived here for a long time, say 12 years. someone that's vested in the community, someone that's, even though he's running for city commission, is vested in the schools, has worked with the superintendent previously, will work with the superintendent before. Most importantly, will work with the school board. We'll create a good relationship between the city commission and the school board. Someone that has demonstrated ability to listen to, frankly, a lot of familiar faces in this room, and will continue to do so. Someone that showed leadership, someone that has experiences from his involvement, whether it be the DPA, the Winnona Park, I'll list them all. But those have led to experiences. And someone that's really willing to serve, and would like to serve you at a higher capacity as a city commissioner representing District 2 for the next 4 years. So on November 3rd, I'd be honored and humbled to support the residents of District 2 as a new city commissioner. Thank you for coming.
Thanks everyone for being here. I haven't checked the boxes. I haven't sat on boards. I haven't sat on the top of a neighborhood association. I haven't done it. So if you're looking just for somebody who's done more stuff, I'm not your guy, and I will understand if you haven't voted for me. But as far as practical experience, as far as what it takes to lead and what it takes to give good ideas to this community, there's no difference between the two of us. In fact, there's probably a difference. I think I'm more qualified. I haven't done the volunteerism stuff, but I don't think that makes one a good leader. Because at the end of the day, none of us are sitting up here playing Sim City. It's not us just thinking what we want this city to be like and just incorporate it. It's you guys. You're the ones making the decisions. So ultimately, all of us, for all of our talk and everything that we're saying, if we're doing our job, we're implementing your will and your ideas. And all I can offer is I will give you a fresh perspective on what I'm thinking. I'll always give you my straight and honest opinion. I will listen to you. One of the things I want to do, frankly, is if I am elected, I would have a meeting just like this before every vote on any issues so I can gauge what you're thinking, if you have any questions or what you're doing, so that it's not me just at the controls doing what I think is in the best interest. But it's ultimately you guys are in charge. So, like I said, I've been here for 10 years. I have done things in the community that, frankly, I'm not going to get into because I don't think it's relevant. If you want someone who says, well, I've checked the boxes, you got Brian. If you want someone who's going to tell you how it is and you want something new, you got me. Thank you.
What I think I can bring to the board that is unique is compassion. I think that I will continue to have an open ear to all sectors of our community, to our senior community, to our families of special needs, to the teachers. I bring compassion, I bring heart. And I also, again, have the ability to truly listen to what somebody is telling me, to take away the privileges that I may have as a parent and listen to the struggles that they may be experiencing. So I just want the opportunity to be able to serve. At the end of the day, that's what this is we sit and we listen to what the community needs, what our school needs, and we serve. And I would like that opportunity to do that. So if on November 3rd you see my name and you feel that what I have said resonates with you, then I ask that you check that box that says Tasha White for District 2 School Board. Thank you.
I'd like to first thank the organizers of the Winnona Park Neighborhood Association and, echo Brian's comments about thanking all of you for showing up and actually caring about what happens in this city. It's really easy to get excited about a national election or even a statewide election, but a lot of what happens in Washington, D.C., and even at the Golden Dome doesn't come nearly as close to affecting your daily life as what happens here in the city of Decatur. The decisions made by our commissioners, the decisions made by our board. There's a saying, politics is local. Because, like I just said, those are the decisions that affect our daily lives more than what is determined in Washington, D.C. or at the Golden Dome. So again, thank you for caring, and thank you for caring enough to show up. And this, The Voice, although I guess people aren't watching that anymore. So, but, I wanted to run for the board because I've been in the public education system from kindergarten through college, and I've had some fantastic teachers and administrators. And this is my way of trying to give back. As an attorney, one of the things that we learn from day one is that you are an advocate. You take your client's case, whether it's good or bad, and you push that case as hard as you can. That's what I want to be for you. I want to be your advocate, first and foremost, for District 2. And secondly, I'll be a board member. If you have an issue that you want me to bring before the board, my email's out there, and I'm more than happy to talk with you in person, go over your concerns, and address that issue. That's what I want to do. I want to be your sounding board. I want to go between, like I said, I want to be your advocate. And again, it's nice to be on committees and talk about things that you're doing to improve the community. I've been in the trenches. I have helped the community. I've been in the courts. I have fought those fights. So, it's great to talk about things like diversity, but I've actually done it. I've helped families. And again, I want to bring that passion for representation and advocacy to this board position. So, and one other thing that I want to bring up is I am heavily invested in the school system. I have 2 children of my own at Winnona Park, and I'm legal guardian to my nephew who's also at Winnona Park. So it's pretty easy to say that I have literal skin in the game. I really care about what happens in the school system, and I think I'm the person that could do the best job in keeping it great and possibly making it better. So when you go to the polls on November 3rd, if you're looking for somebody who is passionate and who also has the background to be a great board member, I would really appreciate your vote. My name is Tom Diesimo. Again, thank you for your time.
Thanks for doing this. This is really great to see this many people out. Basically, I just want to, in summary, what I want to say is what I have to offer. Some of y'all may know, I don't take contributions from anybody for this campaign. And I do that for a reason, and it's because people, I think, at the CAB are kind of tired of cronyism, and they're tired of the influence of special interest money. And they're just tired. There's a certain odor permeating from the DeKalb County Commission that I don't want to come across the street into Decatur. We don't need to run a government in the back room with the door closed with professional bureaucrats and lobbyists. That's not the government I think the people of Decatur want or deserve, and I certainly don't want that. Lived here 30 years, 2 kids through this school. I'm invested in the community. I'm retired. I have no economic interest whatsoever other than trying to spend my time staying out of Emory Hospital and to try to help the community. That's the only interest I have. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a banker, I'm not a real estate agent, I'm not advertising a retail store, I'm not trying to sell you insurance. I'm just a guy who wants to try to contribute something back to the community. I have a lot of experience with these issues, and I think you need somebody who's elected citywide who can provide the kind of leadership that we really need now. We need somebody who can go down to the legislature and make annexation bill happen. We've blown it twice now. I know how to do that. I can sit down with Fran Millar and have a conversation, and I can sit with Elena Fair and have a conversation, and we can get it done in something that's good for Decatur. It's good for us in the long run. So I know how to do those things. I understand local government reasonably well and know what's legal to do and what's not legal to do. And my phone is a listed phone number. Call me up anytime you want. So I would appreciate your help and your support. Decatur's future depends on it. The school, it really does, and your futures depend on it, because the most important thing you have, or for most of us, is our homes. And the value of our homes are directly tied to whether we deal with the school or the gravity issue or not. That's going to make a huge difference with what happens to us as a community. And it's time for us to also have a government that we actually get a chance to say who runs it. And I really believe in that. I believe in democracy, actually. I know it's messy, but it's the best thing I know going. And that's why I want it. And you have a choice. You have an opportunity to send a message to the members of the General Assembly that we want to change that law. We want an elected mayor. You can do that. You can do that. That resolution is not going to come from the city commissions. It never has from the ones in the past. And it's not going to come. It's going to come from you, the voters who say, yeah, I think this is something important, and we really ought to do this. So thanks very much on November 3rd. If you remember to go to the polls, get everybody out this, because there are a lot of things going on. And I'm John Ridley, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Winnona Park, and thank you all for coming out tonight to voice your concerns. There's a person in the back room that no one's thanked, and that's Greg Wiseman, principal of this fine institution. I know he'd rather be at home than see it. Thanks, sir. It's amazing what we've done as a city. I'm a product of this system, and I'm proud of it. Wasn't born here, but I got here as quick as I could. My mother ensured that. This is what your tax dollars have done. I am proud of my heritage. I met my wife many years ago. I followed her home from school. We've raised two beautiful daughters in this system. They've taken advantage of every opportunity and every challenge that's been presented in front of them. We are a welcoming city. We have continued to be a welcoming city. Many of you know me as that guy from Ace Hardware. I have dedicated my entire life to making our city a better place. Whether that's volunteering, of my time, my talent, my resources. I wouldn't be where I am without you. You're the reason I am here. Because I want to continue to give back, to be a voice, to be someone you can count on. I have no reason to change anything I've ever done. You know where to find me. I'm accessible day or night. You know where I live. You know where I work. You know the things I support in this city. We're all here because this is our home. We want this to continue to be our home. November 3rd is a critical time in our city. And yes, this is the time where you check the box. It says Tony Powers. I humbly ask, on November 3rd, you check that box. I want to continue to be part of this solution and be your next citywide commissioner. Thank you.
All right, let's give all our candidates.
All right, I think this is going to conclude our forum tonight. We appreciate everybody coming out tonight and obviously vote on November 3rd. Thank you.